Mr. Heerema, your initial reaction to the verdict today from the jury?
We're pleased with the verdict. Certainly, this was a long case, a case where clearly the jury paid a lot of attention to, deliberated for a while. At the end of it, it's not going to bring Mr. Wellman back, so there's nothing particularly happy or something to celebrate today. But certainly, there's a lot of effort into this with the RNC's very thorough investigation, and we are pleased with the verdict.
How's
What are your
the
hopes
family
for
reacting?
sentencing?
How's the family?
You'd have to ask the family, but understandably, this entire event since October 3rd, 2015 has been very difficult, and I don't imagine that changes at any point.
What are your hopes for sentencing?
Well, it is an automatic life sentence, so we know in large measure what the sentence is. The only question now will be parole and eligibility, and that's something that we'll be looking at in the next number of weeks to make a determination what our recommendation will be in these circumstances.
What about the possibility of an appeal? He was charged with first-degree murder, wasn't found guilty of that. Is that even on the table, or is it too soon?
I would say it's too soon to be thinking in those terms. We certainly always review any verdict and any legal decisions that have been made along the way with our colleagues in appeals, and that's something that's done over the next number of days after the dust settles.
Were you surprised they didn't call any evidence at all?
You know, that's a decision that the defense makes in any case, and it's not one that we would comment on. Certainly, we prepare for the possibility of them calling evidence. We control the Crown's case, and we did our best to put on a focused and thorough case. But their decision is truly their decision, and you'd have to ask them about that.
You are outside prosecutors. Was the process very different here in Newfoundland and Labrador compared to what it is in Halifax, Nova Scotia?
I think there's some subtle differences, but basically a trial is a trial, and the process would be the same fundamentally, and no matter where you would be in Canada, given that we're all governed by the same criminal code. So nothing extraordinary.
On a personal note, was it difficult being over here? I mean, your families are somewhere else, and you're over here for, you know, a month and a half?
Yeah, it's certainly been a long proceeding for a lot of people involved, not just us. The victim's family are not necessarily here located in St. John's, so there was a lot of people who had a lot of time invested in this and were away from home, including us, but certainly that's very much a secondary consideration given the gravity of what happened for both Mr. Wellman and certainly the accused. So it's that's something that affected people, but it's not greatly on our radar.
Can you explain for our listeners the process, what happens next?
So next will be a date to set a date for sentencing. As I said, the sentencing is automatically life in prison, so we know that that will be the sentence that Mr. Phillips will receive. We'll then make submissions about when he would be eligible for parole. That can be any number between 10 and 25 years. The Justice Marshal will ultimately determine what that number should be. His parole and eligibility starts from the date of his arrest, which would be sometime in October 2015.
Does the jury's recommendation ever become public, or is that just kept to?
Yeah, the judge will often refer to that at the time of sentencing, and we would expect, as she indicated on the record, that that will form part of her considerations in fashioning an appropriate sentence. And certainly that will also be done with the benefit of Crown Counsel and Defense Counsel's input as to what's an appropriate recommendation. And that's not something that we have formulated at this point, but certainly will be doing in the days ahead.
Thank you.
Thanks.